Hey guys, I hope you're having a fantastic day. We've been having a lot of clients ask us, can you break it down for me? Can you explain to me what is going on? Because even though I bought a house 10 years ago, I know everything has changed, or I just have never purchased a house and I figured, hey, let's make a overall quick tour of what it is that you should be expecting when you are buying a house. So I hope this helps, and if you have any questions, please drop them down below. So the number one thing you want to focus on is knowing your market. I'm gonna use some quick context of what I mean by that. So back when COVID happened, there was just so many people that didn't understand the reason why so many people were still buying. There was a lot of misconceptions going on there that were saying, oh no, don't buy. I always tell my clients, educate yourself, go back in history, go back in overall the data that's there, and look at the information that can help you make a decision. Real estate is a long-term play, okay? And when you get the opportunity to take advantage of interest rates, do so. That is what a lot of clients, when COVID happened, that is what they did. They took advantage of the interest rates. However, nowadays, some people will scream that the sky is falling and think that now interest rates are higher. However, historically speaking, back in the 1900s, that was when interest rates were at an all-time high. That was when prime lending was happening. Don't get me started, do your research. I am just trying to share with you that when it comes to the overall big picture here, market right now is fantastic. The interest rates are still low. And I always tell my clients, for me as an investor, I'm looking at the numbers. I'm looking at what is that location going to eventually do. I just invested in a new area that to a lot of people, they might think that area isn't necessarily the area that they would have wanted to choose as a property that they would invest in. But I'm part of the governmental affairs, and one of the things we're looking at is all the growth that is happening in El Paso. So in that area, there's a lot of overall growth that's happening, a lot of investments going on, a lot of shopping centers opening, and I can get in and buy something low like I did 6 years ago, going on 7 years ago, in a similar area. I bought that house for about $158,000, and that house now up to date is $280,000. Again, do your research, look at the numbers. Anybody telling you that you're gonna make money like that in real estate, get in, get out, vet them very carefully, or they're probably trying to teach you how to do an assignment contract, which is completely different and not the point of this video. So with that being said, know your market. If you are in the situation where maybe you need any assistance with closing costs, maybe you need assistance with anything that can help you get into the door, make sure that before you start looking at houses, you mention that to your agent. Why? Because your agent is going to be able to ensure that whenever they're sending you properties, they are sending you homes that realistically are going to work for your budget. I've seen some listings, for instance, recently even, we got 10 offers. This was about maybe a month ago. We got 10 offers, and you might say, in this market? Yes, in this market, because it was a phenomenal house for the price per square foot that my client was selling it to compete with the new builds for that price per square foot. We got a bunch of people that were interested because versus what they would have paid for a brand new home, they were getting a 1-2-year-old home a lot less, right? So with this being said, that house, it ended up having a multiple bid situation, and we did not help with closing costs. Instead, they actually offered us above the asking price, slightly, but it still was above the asking price. So I would not encourage you at that point to focus on a home that maybe is brand new on the market when you know you need closing costs, and your agent should educate you and tell you, look, honestly, right now this house is priced really well, probably gonna have to compete with some people. Let me find you something that I can help you get leverage and actually get you closing costs. I have clients in different price points. One of our recent clients, he's qualified under the 150 mark, which in this area, it's very competitive because anything above like 250, you have a little bit more wiggle room. Anything below like the 200, it's still like competitive, but not as competitive as under 150 because there's a lot of first-time home buyers trying to get their house, and that is what their budget is going to allow them to do in this, again, first step. So when it comes to those clients, I already know I need to find a house that's been on the market, and we know for a fact that as long as we get a situation where we structure the deal well, they're usually going to go with our offer versus somebody that's trying to go in and ask for closing costs, because in reality we have like 20 other people that we're competing at that point, especially if the house is nice. So again, knowing your market is extremely important. You want to make sure that you have that conversation with your agent depending on what your end goal is going to be. Okay, now number 2 is going to be preparing financially. I talked about that in one of my other videos. I'll link it down below or on the little. But one of the things that we were talking about is when it comes to knowing your numbers, it is so important. You don't want to go to the store without your wallet, right? Like, simple. But it amazes me how many people will allow their clients to go down the rabbit hole looking at houses before being qualified, before knowing their interest rate, before knowing the taxes in an area, before knowing all the components that are so important in buying a house. And they essentially just say, yeah, let's go check out the house, let's see if you like it. Not. I had one of my clients that recently relocated. They're retiring here in El Paso. We just closed on their home. Long story short, they were vetting me and another agent. And it was funny because he told me, he was like, the reason we went with your agency is because not only do you show that you truly care, but you say it how it is, and you educated us. You overall told us what was going to happen versus us kind of like dragging you wherever it is that we were trying to go. When we didn't have the education, we were looking at you as the expert. And long story, what happened with them is that the agent that was showing them houses originally, they had not signed a buyer rep yet. So again, they were just like, they're just dating. And that agent essentially showed them a house before being approved, before advising them to look at the numbers. And when they went back and tried to start an application, they realized that the house that they were looking at, it was just not gonna work with their budget. And they were pretty upset at that because they felt like she should have educated them on what to do, but she didn't. And maybe she was afraid, maybe she was shy, I don't know. But I told them from the beginning, we need to know your numbers. I'm not going to waste your time by showing you houses that at the end of the day, you're going to look at me like you were very upset when we're not able to get it because it doesn't work with the budget. So again, knowing your finances is extremely, extremely important. Always make sure that you also compare your lenders. What do I mean by this? I have had some situations where some of my clients say, like for instance, I bank with Navy Federal. That's one of my banks that I have. And what they have personally done for me on some of like my personal loans is that they will offer me a specific rate that I've then compared to another bank, and that other bank has given me a better deal. So at the end of the day, you really want to ensure that you are vetting your lender. It's so important for you to also ensure that the communication is going to be at par with what you are looking for. Oh my gosh, I have this super sweet couple. They're looking to buy a home right now. We're actively showing them properties, and long story short, the lender just never answers their call. They were basically recommended by a family friend, and essentially that lender just never gets back to them. I have another client in a similar situation. His dad actually recommended also the lender, and I told him like, look, like I'm not going to push you. I don't get anything out of recommending my lenders. The only thing I get out of it is that they listen to me, because I vet them very, very carefully, and I fired a few just because they were not giving the service that my clients needed. That's the bottom line. So essentially, they went with the lender that the father recommended. And right now, he's in the medical industry. He gets so frustrated with the fact that she just never answers the calls. I reach out, she never answers. I send an email, they never answer. We're under contract right now. And I already told him, like, look, honestly, we need to start playing plan B in our scenarios and get you in touch with another lender or figure something out, because the last thing we want is for the deal to fall through, all because she didn't answer. She didn't give us updates. He has a bunch of questions that part of those I can answer, but part of those I can't, because that's her job to explain those to him based off the terms of financing, everything else that she's giving to them. So again, working with the right lender, always, always, always make sure that you are vetting them very carefully to ensure that you're not going to end up in a situation environment that is just not ideal for you and your family. After you know your finances, you know your market, you have your lender in play, one of the steps that you want to do is going to be to ensure that we are getting everything situated when it comes to the offer that you're going to be making. Let's say you just found the house that you want, you got everything situated with the lender, the financing, the numbers. Well, you want to make sure that your agent is explaining to you how your offer is going to be structured. What do I mean by that? There's earnest money that you have to pay, there's closing costs that you have to pay, there's appraisals that you have to pay, and there is inspections that you have to pay. If they haven't explained this to you, please ask them to do so, because this is very important depending on the terms that they are adding on your contract. I'm going to break it down very easy. I don't want to make it too long where you end up clicking off my video, but essentially to explain it to you is earnest money is the money that you pay to actually reserve the property. That is money that will be credited back to you at closing. Unless you cancel and you walk off, that is the only time that your money would be forfeited. But as long as you close that home, you will be refunded that money. Now, number 2 actually goes hand in hand with your earnest money, and that is your option period money. In some states, they call it the due diligence period. Essentially what it is that you're paying somebody, in this case, the seller, the investor, whoever you're buying the house from, you're paying them X amount for you to have the option to back out of the contract if needed. Now, personally speaking, if I'm representing a seller, we don't accept anything past like 3 to 5 days, because there's more than enough time for you to conduct inspections during that time. So for us, usually the normal down here, depending on the house, okay, because it does vary, but usually it's about $100 for 3 days. So with that being said, you pay them $100, again, depending on the market, depending on the house, for 3 days for you to be able to have the unrestricted right to cancel if needed after you get back that inspection report and you're just not happy, or if the sellers are not willing to do any of the repairs that maybe you're really concerned about. That is something you really want to ensure that you add if you need it, because again, depending on the situation, on that listing I was using as an example earlier, we did not accept an option period. Why? We knew what we were selling, and 2, there was a lot of other offers that came in that, you know, some of them had option periods, some of them didn't. We wanted somebody that wanted to get married with us versus like just date. So again, that's one of the things that, depending on your offer, that is one of the things that you want to structure in there or not. Maybe you really want the house and maybe you're like, no, I see the house, it's not caving in. I know maybe some things are going to come back on the report, but I know that they're, you know, stuff that I can work with. So just keep that in mind. Now, another expense that you have there, number 3, is going to be your inspection. Now, this is optional. However, I always recommend that you do an inspection. Why? Because you don't know until you know. You need to hire a licensed inspector to go out to the property to ensure that whatever it is that you are buying, whether it's a duplex, whether it's a hotel, whether it's a house, I say hotel because we just closed on one. So essentially, they did their due diligence period, and on that hotel, it was a longer time frame that the due diligence period lasted for. So again, case by case, right? But essentially, when it comes down to that due diligence period with the inspection, the inspector went out, they assessed the property. That house, again, depending on the situation, but for typically a house, you're looking at about $300 to $500 for the inspection. Basically, inspector goes out and at the end, they give you a report of all their findings. Now, another component of your home buying journey is closing costs, okay? Let's just say you're buying a house for $500,000. Well, you're gonna multiply your $500,000 times your actual closing cost. Usually it's 3%, okay? So whatever it is that you're buying, always keep that in mind, which is going to give you the total of what it is that your closing cost would be on that property. Now, the last thing on your expenses is, of course, your down payment. Now, you should have already known this with the lender. They should have already explained it to you. We have clients in every situation. Some of them actually get to qualify for DPA, which is down payment assistance. Some of them don't qualify for DPA and they have to pay for the money, of course. And of course, depending on the actual financing you're getting, they will either require a 3%, a 3.5%, a 5%, or a 10, or even up to a 20%. There is a myth going on that, again, you need 20% down to actually buy a home. That is not the case. It is case by case depending on where you land on, again, that financing that the lender's trying to get for you, which comes back to working with the right people. We've had lenders that they can't get it done, and then I just switch them back to another lender that I know can get it done, because we work with multiple for that same reason. Now, we got everything situated with your financing, we've got everything situated with your inspections, we got everything situated with all the components prior to actually getting under contract. Now let's briefly talk about what happens up to the closing date, okay? Now that you're under contract, you've delivered your earnest money, you've done your inspections, you've done your option period, all that good stuff, what is happening next is that you are working hand in hand with your lender, which again, that is why it's so important to ensure you have the right people. The lender is essentially going to ask you for document after document until the very day of closing. Now, this is where also you can tell a good lender from a bad lender. A lot of the lenders that I fired in the past, they would send a file to underwriting. The file would come back with a bunch of conditions that in reality, they should have already known were gonna come back based off their experience. Now, there are some situations where that is an exception, of course. They'll send it over to underwriting and there was just no way that we're gonna know about that, and underwriting found it. Underwriting is like the FBI, they will find anything. So essentially that is when they will go ahead and send it back to your lender. Underwriting now has told them this is a condition that your client needs to meet in order for us to approve the financing. For instance, on one of our recent files for VA, the paint on the exterior of the home was chipped. We already knew that was going to be something that was going to come back. So essentially the listing agent and I had already coordinated for one of our contractors to go out, paint it, make sure we were good. And essentially when they originally had the pictures on the file from that first condition that was again a requirement from a previous file that they had, and we can get into how that works a little bit more in another video if you're interested. But essentially what happened is that they got back that condition, and since they already had it on the system, we just sent them a picture of the fact that it had been done. They sent somebody to inspect, it was good, we got that condition cleared, and we're ready to close. So up until the very day of closing, just be patient. Okay, I promise you the reward is going to be worth it, which is when you get your brand new set of keys handed to you and you get to start building that memory, that equity, that overall journey that you've worked so hard to achieve. Okay, I see a lot of my clients in the past where they've shared with me that they stopped working with a certain agent because the deal fell through, but as like things were happening up until the very day of like closing where things happened, which again, things can happen. It was bad because the agent just wasn't being sympathetic for them. It was not something where they felt like they actually mattered to that agent. And that's where I say work with people that you know, like, and trust. Obviously, sometimes you can't know everybody, but you, for the most part, you can vet somebody's character based off how they treat you and how they treat others. And this person just essentially like wouldn't ease their mind with a lot of the concerns that they had. And when we went through the experience, I remember there was times where, you know, the wife had some situations happening and I was literally like their therapist. I feel like we as realtors, the good ones at least, tooting my own horn here, but essentially like you care, you know, you go above and beyond for the client because you truly feel like you are now relating to them, you know them. I have my agents, so it's not always me that would go and show the property, but it was always me on the calls. It was always me trying to ensure that things were okay. And for the most part, like I said, you just want to work with people that they care truly about you and your needs, or that they're putting you around a team of people that are just like them, that they care for you, that if something is hitting the fan, that they answer the phone and they're telling you like, look, let's figure it out together. What can we do? That actually happened with one of the transactions that we recently closed. The listing agent was just, I hope my face said it all. And my client basically like was trying to ask for like very reasonable request, and the agent just would not answer her phone. She just wouldn't answer the phone. I would text her and I would call her and she would text me saying, text me, which as we all know, communication sometimes over a text is just not the best. Essentially, she would just completely avoid us. We really wanted the house, which is why we made it work, but it was just such a horrible experience, and in that sense of, again, the overall communication with them. But they appreciated the fact that we took the time every single time to put their mind at ease and tell them, look, we're gonna figure it out. take a deep breath, let me figure it out, let me stress out, you relax, we're gonna get this done. So I hope these steps help. I wanted to elaborate a bit more because I know that we have just so many misconceptions going on when it comes to the home buying journey. Please just guide yourself, ask the right questions, work with the right people, and I promise you, you will get to the finish line. I hope you have a fantastic day, and if you have any additional questions, drop them down below. Also, our website is down below, and we do have free resources for you, a free buyer guide and a free seller's guide, whether you're looking to buy in the Texas market, whether you're looking to relocate to North Carolina, whatever market it is, we can help you. We vet all of our partners that we have working with our agency for that same reason, to ensure that we're taking care of you guys. So I will talk to you on the next one. Until then, make sure you have a great day.